Hello and welcome to today's webinar on Thinking Outside the Box, Customizing Esri Story Maps. So before we begin, we do want to apologize for the technical difficulties that were experienced 2 weeks ago, and we want to thank you for adjusting your time to attend today's webinar. So to begin, I'm Jasmine Sohal, the GIS analyst here at Marketing, and with me today is Amanda Medeiros, Enterprise Support Consultant for our Enterprise Support Services. We both work out of Esri Canada's Toronto office. For those of you that haven't attended one of our webinars, we are recording the session, and we'll email you a recording along with the PDF of the slides after the webinar. If you have any follow-up questions about this webinar, please feel free to contact Amanda or myself. So just to begin, we have some housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions about the content Amanda and I are presenting, please use the Q&A panel. So please be sure to choose Ask and then All Panelists and type in your question in the box and click Send. We'll also pause throughout the webinar to take questions, and we'll also take questions again at the end. But please feel free to type in your question at any time. So for today's session, we're going to be focusing on several topics related to customizing your story maps. First, we're going to take a look at what story maps are and the various templates available for you to use. Then we're going to look at how you can go ahead and customize your story with and without hosting them yourself. And finally, we're going to go over some best practices for creating some compelling stories. So let's start with defining what exactly story maps are. So, story maps are simple web apps that combine interactive maps, so that are usually published in ArcGIS Online or through your portal, and multimedia content, so that can include your photos, your videos, your audio, your text, and user experiences to tell stories about the world. And the world can mean anything, basically, so it could be planet-wide, it can be nationwide, or even as small as your local neighborhood or your community. And most story maps are hosted on the cloud by Esri, so you don't have to worry about the small details like maintaining servers, but you can opt to host them yourself as well. So moving on, so story maps also incorporate builder functions that enable you to build a sophisticated story with no GIS or web development skills. And this is the key, that you don't necessarily need to know JavaScript or CSS or HTML to create a compelling story map. They also work equally well on PCs, tablets, and smartphones. So this is because of the responsive technology that they'll work well on all screen sizes. So anything you see on the big screen, you'll be able to see just as well on a mobile device. And finally, they're open source, so you're free to download and customize them. You can get the source code on GitHub, and it's also accessible through the Story Maps website. So you can get started right away by choosing one of the many story map templates in ArcGIS Online to suit the kind of story you want to tell. So story maps include an array of templates that provide different ways of telling a story with maps. So for example, if you wanted to present a series of points of interest, you would use a story map shortlist. If you wanted to compare two maps, then we might want to go with a swipe or a spyglass story map template. If you wanted to compare several maps at once, then the series template's great for that. If you wanted to enable a crowd to participate in a story, you would have the crowdsourced story map. And finally, if you just wanted to have a scrolling experience through maps and multimedia, then I would recommend the Story Map Journal or the Cascade. So there are a variety of templates available for you to use, and although story maps may vary, there are still 5 underlying elements of a story map that are consistent with every single type of template. So the first one is the story, and this is a concept or message that the map wishes to convey. The next is the text, so this serves as a narrator or a guide that helps the user interpret the map. There is a spatial data, which is derived from a variety of sources, including satellite images, map services, and tabular data. There's also the cartography, and this provides the attractive, understandable representation of your spatial information. And finally, we have our user experience, which presents interactive functionalities in an intuitive way. So for this webinar, we have decided that the demos, we separated the demos into 3 different levels of customization. So we're going to have a beginner, intermediate, and advanced level of customization. So depending on what level you are comfortable with customizing, we have something that will kind of suit your needs. So the first one we're going to be looking at is the beginner customization level. So for this one, we're going to be looking at editing with our story map journals using HTML. So the story map journal is an app template that's ideal when you want to combine your narrative text with maps and other embedded content. The format is very simple and it is very flexible to use. So the story map journal may present a story based around just one map, or it may take users through multiple maps and associated images and videos to provide them with engaging, in-depth information. So a map journal contains entries or sections that users simply scroll through. Each section on a map journal is associated with a map, image, video, or web page that you will embed yourself. The actions can also be defined in a journal section so that, for example, if you were to click on a specific word, it might automatically zoom you into a specific part of the map. So in the map journal, there is a source button that allows the author to view and edit the HTML for the side panel. So here what we can see is that there are certain valid tags that you can use when you are editing in the source panel. So the goal here is to have any valid HTML can be pasted into the source view, except for the script and style tag attributes here. So here's going to be just a quick list of some valid tags that you can use. So what we can do is we can provide you with this list later on as well in the email with the recording. So with that, I am just going to hand it down to Amanda now, who's going to start with our first demo.
Thanks, Jasmine. So we're going to start with square one, just to level the playing field. I'm going to log into my ArcGIS Online account. I have an organizational account. Oops. Get my password going. Right, pardon the delay. So now I'm logged into my organization account, and I'm going to start with the beginning, which is creating a map. I'm going to go into my content page, which has everything that I need right here. Just to simply just go right here to begin, click Create Map. It will give me a title. So I'm going to create a map about invasive species. I'm going to give it a tag so other people in the organization can find it and throughout ArcGIS Online. And you can optionally give it a summarization. For the folders, I'm just going to click a folder that I already have just so I can clean up my ArcGIS Online account so everything can be easily found. And right off the bat, I have a very usable map where I can scroll around and it's interactive. And I have the options of adding data. I can change the base map for any of our templates. I can run analysis on my data. I can save the map to my folders and to the public. I can share it, which I will be getting to for creating the application, so I can share it to the public and create apps from our templates. I can print this map right here. I can get directions. I can measure the area and distance. And I can manage the bookmarks, so that's creating AOIs for quick zoomability to an area I want. I can also find an address of place that I want to quickly zoom. So let's add some data. You can search data from your content page or your organization. You can browse the Living Atlas for any services hosted on ArcGIS Online. You can add a layer from the web or a service that is already hosted, or you can add a layer from your file of your computer. I'm going to quickly add one from the web because I have a service that I would like to use. You can also add your own base maps as well. So I quickly searched ArcGIS Online before this presentation, and I found some invasive species. And you can see all my data is interactive, and I can move around. I can even click the pop-up. And inside the contents page, I can customize this map a bit further. So I can see what it will look like in the legend. I can see the attributes here. I can change the symbology. I have the option of changing the symbol points. Go into symbols here. I can change it to any shapes for our templates that we defaulted here, or I can add an image. I can also change the symbol size. Just get rid of this. Anyways, all right, continuing on. I can also rotate the symbols. I can change the transparency, and I can set the visibility range. So maybe I want my pop-ups to only show up at a certain scale. I'm just going to keep this as a default. You can also select as a heat map here, and this will change all of my points into a selected heat map. I'm going to keep it as a default. And inside, you can also create a filter. So maybe you want only the points to show up with a certain area on your fields here. You can also perform an analysis, same as the tab over here for quick analysis. You can also go into the more options. So you can zoom to your points, and it'll go right back to the beginning. You can change the transparency here as well. You can also change the visibility here as well. You can rename the field. You can remove the layer. You can copy it. And you can also cluster, which is new, so it'll cluster your points for you. You can also change and configure the pop-ups within it. So you can change what people see, the names. You can even add some images and pop-up media. So that is just to get everybody to the same page of how to create a map. I'm going to make sure this is saved to my contents. And now I'm going to go right into sharing this application and creating an app template. You have the option to share this to everyone in the public, your organization, or a member of the groups that you only want to see. I'm going to share it to everyone. Press OK. You have the option of linking the map that we created into a website right here. And you can embed it right here, and it will give you some more customization on how to put it into your website. Yes. Back. So let's create a template. When I click Create a Template, I am offered all of these custom templates that Esri Inc. has given us. You can also search right in here. I'm going to show you how to create a journal right off the bat. So if I select the journal, it gives me the option to create it here, preview it, or download the source code, which I'll get into more detail during this third presentation. So I'm just going to create it. It also gives you the option of changing the title, the tags, the summary, and which folders to save it in. I'm going to keep it the same folder. And click Done. So now what it's doing in the background is creating a builder for me so I can start this. I have the option of changing the side panel to a floating panel. So I'm just going to keep it as a default. You can go back into the options and change that later. You can change the title of your map journal if you wish. I'll just keep it the same. It's already saving in the background for me. So now I have the option of creating the main stage. The main stage is what's going to be shown on this right-hand side here, and your descriptions are going to be on the left-hand side here. You have the option of sharing your maps, an image, a video, or a web page. For my first one, I'm going to have a web page, so it's a live web page that people get up to right in the beginning. I configure this. It gives me a little bit more option for the position, and if the user want to navigate it to right away, I'll keep that as next. And I'm going to give it a quick description. And I'm going to add that. Now I have a fully functional website already ready to go, and I have some descriptions right here. Let's build this a little further. Let's add that map that I just created. If I create another one, give it a quick title, I can select the map that I just created. And you can change the location if you want. Right now it's set at the map default, but I can zoom it to anywhere I want. I can change the content. Maybe I want certain layers shown. I can also change the pop-up here as well. I can add an overview map, a legend, and the address place feature finder that we had in the map as well. I'm going to click a legend so I can demonstrate my goals here. I'm going to just set the text as a default. So I'm going to be adding a legend in the HTML, but I'm going to show you that in a moment. So now you can see I have my interactive map that I just created with my pop-ups here. And I have my legend. So this legend is the default that I have right here, and it's not as spiffy as I would want. Maybe I want to put it in here. And this is when we're going to get into that HTML extra coding that Jasmine was talking about earlier. I'm going to add this legend right in here. And how I do that is I'm going to go right to the source into the HTML and edit it. So you can see that HTML is popped up right now. I have some quick text that I have already written up with some coding that I found. And I'm going to just make sure I got everything. Copy. Go right in there. I'm going to paste that right in. So now that I saved it, I can see this beautiful legend that I've already pre-constructed with some text. So there's also other things that you can do inside of here. If I go back into this editing session, there's some story action buttons that I can add. So I can add some contents to my page in the beginning for quick navigation. If I highlight this, go to the navigation buttons that just highlighted right here, you can add a map that will automatically zoom to this area, an image or a video to start when somebody clicks this button. But I'm going to navigate to a section. It pops up, asks me for the section. I'm going to go for page 2, apply, save that, and it's already pre-constructed a table of contents for me. So when I hit it, it automatically zooms to that area. There's some other things that we can do with this HTML that I created. If I go back to the source code, I go to the links. I'm going to copy this. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be adding this in right to the bottom here. Save it. And what I did was I created a link that was a little bit more colorful for the user. And already, when I click it, it goes right to an Esri homepage. And on our resource documentations that we provide, there's a little bit more to do if you're a little unfamiliar with HTML editing, and you can explore those further. So always a good practice, too, is to save your story map so it's public and everybody can see it. And if you ever want to change what this looks like, you can go back right into the settings, change the layout, change the options here. Maybe you want to make your panels bigger or smaller. Change the themes to any pre-designed colors that we have here. Perhaps you want to change the font. You can also change the logo and the header in any of the share buttons. And right off the bat, I was able to create a map, create a story app template, and edit into the HTML. And I'm going to go head this back over to Jasmine, and she can tell you more.
Perfect. Thank you, Amanda. So while Amanda was doing some demos, we did... Thanks, Amanda. So Amanda was able to provide us with a quick demo of how easy it was. Thanks, Amanda. So she would... Yeah, sorry about that, Stephen. So Amanda was able to effectively show us how easy it is to customize in a story map journal. So the next thing is I did have some questions come in while Amanda was doing the demo, so I'm just going to go ahead and answer some right now. The first one was, can I use story maps offline? So currently, story maps don't offer offline usage. If you did want to use your story map, your users do need to be connected onto the internet or to your enterprise network in case you are using Portal for ArcGIS. However, in the story map journal, you do have the option to print your story map that can create a PDF slide. So in that, you can visit, when you go to the share option, from there you can go ahead and print your story map from there. And that's available through the story map journal. And the second question that I got in was if story maps are able to support an autoplay mode. Yes, you definitely can enable the story map to do autoplay, and once again, that's through the share or the link button at the top of the header, which you'll be able to go ahead and configure some autoplay options. So moving on, we are now going to move on to our next level of customization, which is the intermediate. So for the intermediate, we're going to be exploring the crowdsourced story map. So this app template enables you to publish and manage a crowdsourced story to which anyone can contribute their photos with captions. So you can use it to engage a specific or general audience on the subject of your choice. It is important to note that the story map crowdsource is different from other story maps in that it enables people to post pictures and information onto your map. Unlike the other apps where you are able to do all the authoring yourself, you don't have complete control over what content will appear on your crowdsourced story. So you'll need to review contributions to check for inappropriate or unwanted posts, and you also do need to consider some privacy laws as well. So in terms of for customizing our crowdsource, we can personalize any of the text you see in the contribution panel, except the text that the two buttons on the bottom of the panel will show, which is the show terms and conditions. And this is a great way to provide more direction to your audience regarding what you want them to contribute, and it also lets you create a crowdsourced story in a language other than English. So when you want to customize your crowdsourced story, what we'll be using here is the ArcGIS Online Assistant, and we'll be editing the JSON. So for anyone that doesn't know what the ArcGIS Online Assistant is, it is a community-supported tool that you can download from GitHub, and you can also access it online. So you can just search for ArcGIS Online Assistant. So this tool will use the ArcGIS REST API to provide several different utilities for working with your content in ArcGIS Online and as well as for your portal. So the features that are included with this tool include you can copy content between your portals and your organizations. You can also view and edit the JSON content. You can update your URLs of services and web maps, and you can also look at your viewer user stats. So before we begin for this next demo, this tip does involve editing the JSON of your story, and so it does carry a little risk that you will break your story if you're not careful. So unless you are comfortable with this process, it's recommended that you only do this on a new crowdsourced story map, not one where you've already started collecting photos. So I'm just going to go ahead and hand this off to Amanda.
Thank you, Jasmine. So I'm just going to start with showing you the Story Maps app page. You can create a story map right here. So I'm just going to go into over down here, and I'm going to try creating a crowdsourced story map right from this site using the crowdsourced beta. And the beta just means it will be changing throughout the course, and just check back to see what kind of updates have changed since you did this last. What I'm interested in doing is creating a story where the public can also add their own invasive species that they see. And I'm going to click Next. And it's already loading everything in the back end because I logged into the app page. If I didn't log into the app page, it would prompt me for a login. And it's just creating the map, the app, and the feature layer into my root directory. And it's going to be launching a builder that I didn't have to do much right off that page. I can add a cover title. And I can also change this right here, this background image of these beautiful mountains. They're not really invasive species. So you can drag a drop image, or you can just grab one right there, add it in, and now it is a different picture. I'm going to click Next. And because people are adding this in the public, I'm going to accept new contributions, and I do want to review it just to make sure that these are, in fact, invasive species. You can choose what your contributors want to sign in as, an ArcGIS Online account, Facebook, Google, or perhaps a guest. You also can change the participation button label, which is up here. I'm going to call it Submit. You can see it changed right there. You can also change this logo, and I am going to upload a logo. Once again, you can drag and drop or grab a file. I'm going to change it to this plant. And now I have a nice little plant. Oop. You can also change the link. I'm just going to keep it at the moment. I'll prompt you to change the header, which is right up here, and click Next. It also gives you the option to display the social buttons, which are over here for Facebook, Twitter, or any links. You can add some tweets, some more hashtags, maybe something to follow. And that is pretty much all I have to do to change the settings right here. So if I press Explore to Map, I can see that I have an interactive, beautiful grayscale right here. And I'm already ready to submit some invasive species into the world. So I'm going to click a photo to add a contribution. I'm going to take my little goldfish, and I'm going to give them a title. Call them Goldfish. I can give them a location, so I can just type a location in. I can have it locate me on my device, or I can just find it on the map and just move it around. I'm just going to put them in the Great Lakes, which I'm sure are great for the Great Lakes. And I'm just going to give it a description. Oh, goldfish. And I'm going to accept the terms and submit. Now it's saving. Now I have my little goldfish here. And because I am the admin, I have the option to review or reject him. He is a goldfish indeed, so I will approve him. And it is just saving back into my feature class, and it will be added to the map right there. And I can click him. Oh, let's look at all the contributions. I can click him, and there he is, goldfish. Oh, for some reason he didn't get approved. Anyways. Okay. Oh, there he is. Now he's sitting there for everyone to see. But perhaps I want to change this a little bit further. These questions that are prompted aren't very specific, like for title. I want to change this a little bit in the back end. So how can I do that? Well, if I go into ArcGIS Online Assistant, I have the option of logging in through ArcGIS Online or for Portal. I'm going to quickly log into ArcGIS Online, approve it, and I'm already there with my support name. So when you create a story map through the app story page right there, it will put everything in your root just so you remember. You can see it right there with my map, app, and feature services. And if I go over here, I can search my content if I can't find it regularly. And if I go to I want to drop down, I can copy the content, so I can copy that feature layer or the map or an app. I can view the JSON, which I will do shortly. I can update the URLs of the services in the web map. I can update the URLs of the registered apps and services. That pertains more to the portal. I can view the stats, or I could start all over again. Let's view the JSON, because I would like to change those questions. So I'm just going to select my app here. And you can see the backend JSON is right there, and you have the option of changing it. So I'm just going to quickly go down. If you want to edit it, make sure you hit this pencil here, and you're already ready for editing. As Jasmine said before, be careful of what you do edit. Maybe you want to make a copy of this just in case you do break something. But I'm just going to be changing the name. So right there for my label, let's give it a bit of more descriptive. Name of species. Now that I named that, I'm going to go back up, save that, and it's saving in the back end. So now when I go back to my story app right here, I'm going to give it a refresh so it remembers that changes. And if I go right into the submit button, I got my species named right there. And you can go into the back end and change other things. Just remember, be aware of what you're changing, and always keep a copy, always back up. And I'm going to head things back off to Jasmine, who will continue on.
Thank you, Amanda. So while Amanda was doing that demo, of course, we got a couple more questions, so I'm going to go ahead and answer some. So the first question that we got was, can I create a crowdsourced story map with a free public account? So unfortunately, you can't create a crowdsource in a free public account. And this is because the crowdsourced app creates and manages an ArcGIS feature service that stores all the content that's contributed in by the participants. So every contribution is basically added as an entry into feature service. And unfortunately, feature services can't be created on the ArcGIS public account level, which is why you can't use the crowdsource for a public account. Another question that I got was if I created a story map with this beta app, will they still be able to use their app once the final version is released? And yes, you definitely can. Once the final version is released of the crowdsourced story map, you will be able to continue to use it. But there are two possible exceptions that you may want to look out for. The first one is if you are using additional supporting layers in your crowdsourced story map, then those layers may stop working, or it just might be that their symbols may change after the final release. So to avoid this situation, we definitely recommend you use a feature service layers for any supporting layers that you want to add onto the map, and only use simple symbols for these layers. And the second exception might be that there is also a possibility that the data model of the crowdsourced layer feature service may change. And so if this does occur, the Story Maps team does intend to provide a workflow or a tool to help you update your feature service to that new data model. And we're just going to answer one more question here. And they're just asking once again, where does the content that people contribute to a crowdsourced story get stored? So as we mentioned, the content that people do contribute is automatically stored in the feature service. So every picture that is stored is now stored as an attachment to that feature service. So all in all, the crowdsourced app does create and manage the service for you automatically. So the final customization level that we're going to look at is going to be the advanced. So Esri story maps, as we mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, are open source. So this means that you can download the code for any of the story map apps available from GitHub. And you can host it on your own server and even customize it. So while the needs of the most story map authors are going to be served through the versions of these apps that are hosted through ArcGIS Online or your ArcGIS Enterprise portal, there are also a few reasons to consider self-hosting. One of the first ones is that one of the first benefits is that you can give your story a custom URL on your organization's domain. So instead of the standard arcgis.com URL that you can see here, you can have your story changed to a URL that is more with your agency or with your organization. You can also set up web analytics to capture statistics about who's reading your story and enhance how your story looks when it's shared on social networking sites like Facebook and Twitter. If you are a designer who knows HTML and CSS, you can style a story map app that changes its appearance beyond what's available in your builder. So a popular style change is going to be to add a banner in a map tour. And finally, developers can customize an app to add new features. So examples of this customization can include adding a background audio or a cover page to your story map. There are also many styled and customized story maps in our gallery that you can also review for ideas. And there are also many developers' blogs that are available to help you with specific customizations, which we will show you at the end of the webinar under resources. So with now, we're going to go on to our final demo, and here Amanda will show us how we can customize a story map swipe template and also register your ArcGIS, register your app on the ArcGIS Enterprise. She'll also show us how we can add some customized templates for our organization. So it's going to be off to you, Amanda.
Thank you, Jasmine. So I'm just going to show you a couple of ways you can download the app templates. As I showed you before with this story map that I created, when I click the share button here and I wanted to create an app, if I just select one, it did give me the option to download this code. So I can get the template from here. Another way you can get the template is through the apps page right here, and I could click right inside, go to the bottom down here, and you can download it here, or you can get right to the source in GitHub and download it there. So there's quite a number of ways you can get these apps. Once you do get it, you can put it onto your server. I do recommend reading through the READMEs of how to set up each template because they are quite different, and you could just set it up onto your server. For this demonstration, I'm going to be showing you how to put it onto Portal as well. So I did unpack my zip folder right into my root, and it gave me everything that I need. And there's only a couple of more things that I need to do to customize this to launch into my app. In the index, it asks me to get my web app and web map. Just going to quickly go down. Hold on. Oop. Oh, there it is. So my app ID and my map ID. If I log into my portal, I already have an app and a map that I've created already. And doing this just leverages your ArcGIS users, and then you don't have to create an app and a map already. You can already utilize everything that you customized before. So if I go into my Swipe apps, and I just view the application here, I can just grab this ID number right here, and respectively in my maps, there's also an ID number there. Click my viewer, and I can grab this as well. And I'm just going to be swiping this new imagery on top of old imagery. I'm going to go back to my VM. In the index, I'm going to put the app for the story app that I created right here, and for the map. If I had more swipe maps, I would just add a colon and add some more. I do have the option of going and finding only the users that I would like right here. I want all the users in my organization, so I just added a star. But if you wanted to make it more restrictive, you can. One other thing that you do need to do for all of the templates, if you're sharing it to your server, is you need to change the default URL to your server's name. So I changed it from the ArcGIS, and I also changed the URL proxy to my server. And then it's already up and running on your server. So let's add this into our organization. I'm going to go back to my contents. And I'm going to add an item. I'm going to add an application, and it is a web mapping application. It's going to be configurable because I'm going to take it to the next step. And I can change the API to JavaScript, Flex, Silverlight, Web, ADF, or other. I'm going to give it the live link name, and I'm going to call it something. This is just so people in my organization can find this template. Give it a tag so people can easily find it, and I'm going to add this item. Now my template default is already set onto my portal account. I'm going to just go into my settings right here. I'm going to register the app. So all the way down at the bottom, I can register this app. And this is just to register the redirect URI. Click register, just adding it in. Some of the templates do require you to grab the app ID from your registration. So if you go through the workflow and you're trying to figure out where that is, it's right here. I'm going to go back up to the overview. I'm going to make sure I share this. I'm going to share it with only the groups and maybe my organization. And why I'm doing this is I'm going to be making sure this template is only going to be set to my organization's colors, banners, and specifications. And it just makes it easier for people in my organization to grab a template that's already pre-designed so they don't have to keep changing and finding out how to set all the colors. So let's go back into my swipe configuration. You can go in and read around, and if you're pretty good with JavaScript, you can change everything. It's pretty simple to use. There are a lot of resources to figure out how to put a banner in, how to change the colors and pop-ups. Do save something and put it in testing just in case you do break something. It's always good to back it up. So I'm just going to change the color. Right now it's just defaulted to this gray, and I'm just going to change it. I'll show you in a moment what it's looking right now, just to show you what I'm doing. So my live map that's sitting on my server is this default gray that I have right here. I do have the option of switching the builder mode, and it's got my map already in the background, swiping. So I want to change this to a color. And go back in here. Right here I found this is where my panels are, and I'm going to change it to that green or blue. Oh, 1 second. It's hiding right there. And I'm going to go into incognito mode. It's pretty good to go into incognito mode just to see your changes. And then I'll have to worry about refreshing my browser page. Oh, it's asking me to sign in. And now it's blue. So you can change around and make it into a more customizable map than just our pre-designed Esri colors. If I exit out of this. So now how am I going to make this only the templates somebody's going to be using? For example, when I went back to my first demonstration on my ArcGIS Online organizational account, there was a whole bunch of Esri pre-designed templates, but I only want people in my organization to use my own templates. If I go into my organization here, I can go into the edit settings. Make sure you are an administrator of your portal, by the way. If I go right into the map, scroll down a bit, I can see the configurable apps. Right now it's set to default. These are Esri defaulted templates. I'm going to go to demo because I shared my app to this demo group, if you remember. And I'm going to save this. Now when I create something, going into my content, I can create an app right here from my templates. Only the templates I shared are going to be selected. So if I select this and I create my web app, I'm just going to give it a quick test just to show you that it is saved to that lovely blue I changed it to. Make sure you share everything to where you want it to go. And when I view my application, it should have changed it to that blue. Oh. That didn't go as planned. Okay, I'm going to try that again, perhaps in incognito mode. Sign in. I'm going to sign into my Shannon Ross. Go back into my contents. I'm going to try to create that app again. I'm going to select my species template. I'm going to create that web app. Let's quickly view this. There we go. So testing things in incognito mode is a pretty good rule of thumb. Now I can see this beautiful blue, and I'm going to send this back out to Jasmine to end us off.
Thank you, Amanda. So while Amanda was doing that great demonstration, we did have a couple more questions that came in. One of the questions that came in was, other than the crowdsourced story map, can I create any other story maps using a free public account? So the ArcGIS the crowdsourced story map is the only story map template that you cannot create with a free public account. You can go ahead and create any other story maps using a free account. So another question that came in was if I can duplicate my story map. So currently it's not supported to directly it's not currently supported to directly duplicate your story maps in the app builders, but you can use the ArcGIS Online Assistant to duplicate your application. But one thing you should note is that you can, though, go ahead and create a backup copies of your web maps by opening it in ArcGIS Online and clicking Save As. Another question that came in was about if we can get detailed analytics for story maps hosted in ArcGIS Online, or do we have to host a story map on your own service to get that functionality? So in ArcGIS Online, there is when you look at your item details, there's one way to look at how many views your story map gets, but to get more detailed analytics, you will need to host it on your own server. So we're going to go into the final portion of this, I was going to say the story map, but it's our presentation, so it's going to be your best practices. So we just have a quick list of some best practices for you guys. The first one is to decide your purpose first for your story map. So this includes basically if you decide your purpose first and kind of plan out what you want to do, it'll help you determine better which template you'd want to use. The next thing is, of course, testing anonymously, and this is great for when you have public-facing story maps. So you can, once, as Amanda showed, if you go into the incognito tab, you can go ahead and see if anything's been cached on the browsers. Also, keep a copy of your markup in another text document if you are creating some customized HTML for, like, let's say your source tab of your story map journals. So this is important to know when you have a section of any unsupported tags and their content will be deleted or they'll be converted and replaced by a generic P tag. So since the editor has the potential to alter your code, we do suggest that you keep the copy of your markup in another text document. So the next thing is that the style property is not an authorized tag for the source section of the sections. So there are no plans to authorize this for technical reasons. So instead what you can do is you can create a class and then define the appearance of that class using the style tag as shown here in the slide. Also, use the P tag when possible. So while the div tag is supported, the P tag should be used when possible since it's the editor's preferred tag. If you do use a div tag inside a P tag or vice versa, it's known to cause issues in your story maps. And use a text editor insert tools when possible. So when you are embedding your content, although we do have tags available for you to use to embed images in other multimedia, it is recommended that you just go ahead and click the Embed Multimedia tool to add in different multimedia into your sections. And finally, ensure that you're using the most up-to-date version of the templates. So sometimes we do have upgrades to or updates to our current templates, which is only to make the functionality better for you guys. So we do recommend using the most up-to-date version of your templates. So downloading the freshest template from GitHub would be the best way to do that. And so in summary, we do hope you enjoy this webinar. So what we've learned today is we were able to learn what story maps are and the configurable templates available for us to use. We're able to customize our stories with and without hosting them ourselves. And we did go over some great best practices for creating your story maps. So here are some resources for you guys I recommend you check out. So the Story Maps website itself has some great resources, including links to blog posts, frequently asked questions, and as well as tutorials to creating story maps. There's also the Story Maps Developers Corner. I highly recommend going to that website as well, where you can learn about more different types of customizations that you can do with your story maps. And as well as the Story Maps team is very active on Twitter, so go ahead and check out their Twitter page. They usually always have they're always tweeting out the newest template information as well as some great examples that users have created. So we do invite you also to attend some of our upcoming webinars. So a couple of cool webinars we have coming up is actually this week we have the What's New with Imagery in ArcGIS. Then we also have, in a couple of weeks, we have Making Sense of Big Data, that is your road street network. And finally, on October 26th, we have the final, the HOOP, the final of the Enterprise Asset Management, the last part of the series, in the System of Insights Supporting Better Decision Making. Also, here's a list of some related training courses that you can take to further your skills with customizing your story maps or creating story maps. And finally, of course, you can get more information about Esri Canada through our social media. Oops, let me just go back here. So you can connect with us on Twitter and on Facebook as well. And so at this time, we thank you for taking your time out of your day and participating in today's webinar. We will email you a recording of this webinar shortly, as well as a PDF of the slides as well. Additionally, we'll post the webinar recording to our archives page when it's ready. We'd also like to get your thoughts on this presentation, so please fill out the survey that comes when you exit this webinar. I'm now just going to go ahead and stop the recording so we can take questions at this time.